Hello dear students, welcome to Bajirao Ias Academy interview guidance program. So in today's lecture we are going to discuss about the social security, the need for social security in India. So in fact, if you look at social security, it usually provides an important safety net and security net for the people who are in the working age and even after their retirement. So therefore, whenever a country which has social security measures in place for its population, so that would see a positive improvement in the living standards of the people. So if there are any sudden shocks in the economy, whether it is inflation, stagflation, or mass layoffs by the private companies, and even during recession times also that we have seen during the global economic crisis, in 2008. So in those times, even countries like India, which have been facing various problems such as disguised unemployment. So I hope all of you know the definition of disguised unemployment. Okay, so workers employed in the particular sector more than what is required. So for example, agriculture is the sector where we see the disguised unemployment. So in disguised unemployment, what happens, some piece of work has been actually done by 5 workers, but actual requirement is just 2 workers. So this is disguised unemployment. Apart from disguised unemployment, we have also come across the problem called chronic unemployment. If you look at India's scenario, India has been facing the problem of chronic unemployment or long-term unemployment. This is particularly because lack of skills which are industry relevant, and apart from that, India has also been facing the problem of structural unemployment. So due to improvement in technology and people lack of the skills which are necessary for the adoption of this technological change. For example, now we have been increasingly emphasizes on digitization and artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. In order to manage or to transform the economy towards this, we need a proper skilled workforce. So this all depends on social security. Okay, so when I say this all depends on social security, that essentially means that we have a large scale unemployment. Now unemployment will further leads to the problem of poverty. According to 2011 census, in India around 21% of population are poor. So therefore, whenever the economy has unemployment, poverty, mass layoffs, and in all those problems, ensuring social security and social safety nets are very important for the population in the different age groups, whether they are young, whether they are in their middle ages, or they are in their old ages. So therefore, as a country, social security is very important. For example, India requires a well-crafted social security measures for all its workforce at any stage of the workforce, whether they are the government employees or the private sector employees, whether they are engaged in a contract work like gig economy or gig work, or they engaged in the gig platforms. So they require a well-crafted social security measures to all its workforce. So it should be in a manner that it should be physically as well as administratively feasible for the government as for the economy as well. Now when we are extending these social security measures or safety nets for the population, we should also look into the financial viability of this measure as well as the administrative feasibility as well. Now in this context, we will understand the broader definition of social security. What constitutes social security? So this definition of social security has been given by International Labour Organization. International Labour Organization has defined the social security. We all know that the International Labour Organization constituted, which was earlier part of League of Nations, League of Nations. So this was constituted specifically to protect the workers' rights, right? So this has defined social security as protection which the society provide for its members through a series of public measures against any economic or social distress. So this definition of social security is actually in line with whatever we have discussed before, right? So this social protection essentially means the protection that the society extends to the members. For example, people or individuals who are in the working age. So the protection which the society extends or the government extends to those of its members through a series of public measures. For example, if you look at India, what type of social security measures India has brought for its workforce or for its members. So in later phases of this lecture, we will discuss that as well. Okay, so as an economy, over a period of time, what happens during economy evolves, we face several economic and social distress. So therefore, social protection is essentially against economic and social distress. Now, before going into this discussion about the social security, we need to understand the status of social security in India. Now, what is the status of social security in India? Now, data says that around 50% of all its salaried workforce so does not have any social security benefit. Whenever you write any mains answer on social security, or whenever you answer a question in the interview with respect to social security, you must mention this data, because data further enriches your answer. So data says that 53% of the salaried workforce, they do not have any social security measures. Social security essentially involves insurance, pension, provident fund, and even any health related cover. Okay, so it says that 53% of the salaried workforce, they do not have access to any of the social security benefits. So this has been held by the periodic labor force participation survey in the year 2021-22. Okay, so secondly, just 1.9% of the poorest 20% quintile of India's workforce have access to any of these benefits. Okay, so just you can imagine the quantum of the workforce who have access to these social security benefits. Just 1.9% of India's workforce have access to this. After that, we need to talk about the gig workers. So gig workers are also called as platform workers. So gig workers mainly enter into workforce based on the contract between the employer and the gig worker. It is short term or temporary in nature. So therefore, now if you look at the gig workers, so when we talk about the gig workers, the examples are food delivery agents. Are gig workers. For example, Zomato, Swiggy, etc. So therefore, India's booming gig and platform economy report. So this report has been published by Niti Aayog. What is the report? India's booming gig and platform economy. So this report by Niti Aayog says that it is not a billion, it is million. Okay, 7.7 million workers have been engaged in the gig workforce. Okay, so this essentially means that around 1.3% of the India's total active labor force, but they do not have access to any social security benefits. That is what concerning. Okay, so they do not have health cover, insurance cover, they do not have pensions, access to provident funds. Okay, so they do not have any social security benefit or safety nets. While they are on their duty, if anything happens to them, they will not have any social security or safety nets. So after that, we need to talk about the informal sector as well. Okay, so around 91% of India's workforce works in the informal sector. So this is a huge presence of informal sector in the unorganized sector and workforce in the informal sector. Informal sector means generally they do not have job security. They do not have job security and they do not have fixed or permanent salaries, and their salaries will not account, or their salaries will not come under the ambit of income tax, because very often these salaries are meager in nature, very less in nature. So because of this reason, informal sector very often constitute a huge chunk of population, because lower levels of education and lower levels of skill development. So because of all these factors, there's a huge presence of informal sector in Indian economy. Now, if you rank India with respect to countries which have been providing social security, so India rank was 40 out of the 43 countries. So this was a very poor ranking for India with respect to the social security measures that it has provided. Okay, so this is the status of social security for India. Next, what is the need for providing social security? Now we have talked about the status of social security. Now in this we will discuss what is the need to provide social security for its populations. First and foremost aspect in providing social security is it is actually a buffer against any social risk that would arise in the future. Okay, so when people have the social security, if they face any untoward situation while they are on their duty, so they will be able to meet the risk. Okay, for example, social security is actually considered as instrument for the social transformation and social progress. So this is what International Labour Organization has said with respect to social security. For example, when people have the social security or social safety nets, so when company laid off those employees, they will become unemployed. So even though they become unemployed, since if they have the necessary social security, they will get some amount of money. So that will protect them from any shocks that they will face after they become unemployed. So therefore, it is essentially a buffer against social risks. So it essentially helps people to plan their own future through either insurance. Now, when we say insurance, whether it is a life insurance or a medical insurance, right? So this is also a form of social security that the employees in the formal sector usually have. So on the other hand, the employees who are in the unorganized sector or informal sector, they generally do not enjoy the insurance facility or any other assistance. So best example is the gig workers. Okay, so gig workers do not have access to any sort of insurance or any assistance from their employer. Now after that, the medical treatment, social security or the social safety nets essentially provides or medical cover or medical insurance or medical treatment. So whenever the employee falls sick or falls ill, so the insurance cover will help the employee recover without much financial hardships or without any out of pocket expenditure on healthcare. Now if you look at the total out of pocket expenditure in healthcare in India, it is very high. It is around 42% of the total healthcare costs as per National Family Health Survey 5. So this is primarily because poor insurance penetration in India that has made the out-of-pocket expenditure very high in a country like India. So therefore, social security also essentially covers the medical treatment of its employees. And this medical treatment essentially provide monetary support, in the time period they fall ill or they fall sick for the treatment, and the family maintenance allowance would also be provided during the absence of work. Now if you look at the insurance plan, they are offering a lot of variety insurance plans for the medical cover. So most of the employees in the informal sector, they do not have access to this medical insurance or medical treatment. So after that, a very important part of the social security, that is maternity benefit. Now most of the women who are engaged in the unorganized sector, who are part of the informal sector, they do not have access to the maternity benefit. So in fact, maternity is the one reason which has been a factor affecting the women workforce participation negatively. If you look at India, women labor force participation in India is very low compared to many of the developed countries such as Bangladesh, even lesser than countries like Bangladesh. So one of the main reason is lack of maternity allowances and maternity benefit. So when women have this maternity benefit, so they essentially be part of the workforce, and they can also support the sustenance of their families, and even the family members would also encourage women to be part of the workforce if maternity benefit as part of the social security is extended to every woman. After that, we need to talk about the work accident. Now while you are in an industry, while you are doing your work, so if you met with any sort of an accident, the social security or social safety scheme would cover, and it provides you the necessary compensation. It also provides you the necessary medical treatment, and it is borne by the employer himself. So all these factors will save the employees and their families from ruining themselves. Okay, so this allowance, medical treatment, everything will save the employee and their families. So this is the need for social security, so that is required for every individual in a society. So after that, we need to talk about the security during the old age. When employees retire at the end of at the last stage of their life, so during old age time also they require maintenance, so they require sustenance, and they also they should also get access to medical treatment and the financial allowances. So therefore they need retirement benefits, as during such time they lose their ability to perform work and they cannot earn. So since they cannot earn, they cannot perform work, so the old age people should also get the pension, medical treatment, allowances. Those benefits should also be extended for the population who are in the older age. And if you look at the nature of the private employment, so most of the employees do not have the necessary job security. They do not have necessary job security, and these employees do not know when they would be laid off. So therefore security against layoff of the employees is also very important. So this social security essentially helps the retrenched employees to restart their own way of life. So it helps in restarting their own way of life, or they look for any entrepreneurial opportunities, or they may be part of any other company. So however, still that time, so they will be able to sustain themselves when they have the security after the layoff. However, so we have discussed the need for having a social security for the individuals in an economy or a society. So apart from that, we will talk about the international practices with respect to social security. What are the best international practices with respect to social security? Firstly, we need to talk about the International Labour Organization. As I have already told you, it is part of the League of Nations. League of Nations. So this was the organization before the United Nations organization. Okay, so this was established as part of Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles. Okay, so the International Labour Organization has established under the Treaty of Versailles in the year 1919. So International Labour Organization has essentially talked about or deals with the social security for the employees and rights of the workers. So for the same purpose, in the year 1944, there was a resolution by the International Labour Organization. So this resolution essentially talks about extension of social security measures for its employees. Okay, so ILO resolution of 1944 talks about the extension of social security measures for the employees. After that, the Convention 102 of the International Labour Organization also talks about the minimum standards of the social security that have to be adopted by a company, by an industry, and that was started in the year 1952. Now in this context, with respect to social security and social safety, the International Labour Organization Resolution 1944 and Convention 102 are very important. Please remember them. And if you look at the countries which have provided the social security, we need to talk about the Germany. Okay, so because Germany is the first European industrial nation. Okay, so this was the first European industrial nation to start any social security program. So that program has extended to every individual who is part of the workforce other than the military forces. So because of this reason, we consider Germany's approach of providing social security is the best. Okay. Now after that, we need to talk about the steps that have been taken by India over a period of time to promote social security. What are the measures that we have taken to promote the social security? Firstly, we need to talk about the constitutional measures or constitutional provisions which provided for the promotion of social security. Firstly, we need to talk about the concurrent list. So in the concurrent list, social security and insurance, employment and unemployment. So they have actually provided in the concurrent list. Now what is the concurrent list here? So 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution has provided for a list, union list, state list and the concurrent list. So we all know that India is a federation. So therefore, in subjects under the union list, only the union parliament can make a legislation. When in subjects under the state list, only state legislature can make a law. However, when we talk about the concurrent list, on the concurrent list subjects, both the union legislature as well as the state legislature can make a legislation on the subjects which are mentioned in the concurrent list. So social security and insurance, unemployment and employment have been mentioned as subjects in the concurrent list. So this concurrent list have also talked about the welfare of labor with respect to work conditions, provident fund, employers' ability to provide workmen's compensation, invalidity and old age pension and maternity benefits. So all these things have been mentioned as part of the concurrent list, where the state government as well as the union legislature can make laws, can pass essential legislations to provide social security or social safety for the workers. So after that, we need to talk about the Article 41, which is part of the directive principles of state policy under 41, part 4 of the Indian Constitution. So what part 4 says? So it directs the state to secure the right to work, education and public assistance in certain cases such as unemployment, old age, sickness and disablement. So please remember, this is also in line with providing a greater social security for the employees. Okay, so directive principle of state policy has mandated. So after that, the 42nd article has also talked about the social security for the employees. So it essentially talks about just and humane conditions of work and maternity relief for the employees. So please remember, earlier we talked about the necessity of maternity relief for the women workforce participation, or increasing women workforce participation in a country like India. So after that, even Article 43 also talks about the social security. So it essentially talks about participation of workers in the management of industries. So all these factors have talked about the social security. Now, apart from that, the government of India has launched number of legislations. So it has initiated a number of legislations with respect to social security, social safety, and protection of workers' rights. Firstly, we need to talk about the Employee State Insurance Act of 1948. Okay, so please remember this legislation. This is Employee State Insurance Act of 1948. So this particular piece of legislation usually covers companies which has been employing more than 10 employees. Okay, so which has been which covers the factories and the establishment with 10 or more employees, and it essentially provides a comprehensive medical care. Okay, so the Employee State Insurance Act 1948 provides comprehensive medical care to the employees and their families, as well as it provides cash benefits for the employee as well as the families. Okay, so this is the objective of the Employee State Insurance Act of 1948. So however, you may have a doubt here that okay, so we talked about the informal sector. Around 91% of the employees are in the informal sector. So there are number of industries which may have 10 workers or more. However, the problem is these industries or these establishments were not registered. Okay, so they were not under the purview of this particular legislation. So because of this reason, most of the employees were not covered as part of this Employee State Insurance Act of 1948. So they remain out of the ambit of social insurance, or they remain out of the ambit of the medical care benefits and cash transfer benefits. So after that, another important legislation, that is the Employees Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952. Okay, so this particular piece of legislation that specifically applicable to the industries which have 20 or more than 20 employees. Okay, so this essentially provides the terminal benefits such as provident fund, superannuation pension, family pension in case of a death of an employee during his service. Okay, so this also essentially extends the social security benefits for the employees. Next important legislation, that is Employees Compensation Act of 1923. Okay, so this particular legislation has essentially mandated that the employer must provide compensation. Employer must provide compensation to the workman or to his family in case of employee injured, resulting in death or permanent disability to the employee while he is on his service. Okay, so please also remember the Employees Compensation Act of 1923. So after that, there was a Maternity Benefit Amendment Act of 2017. So this essentially extended or increased the maternity leave for women from 12 weeks to 26 weeks. So this is also very important. Please remember this. Okay, so Maternity Benefit Amendment Act 2017. So this has extended the period of maternity leave from 12 weeks to 26 weeks for the woman. So this will provide essential relief for the woman, and this also encourage women to be part of the workforce, and this is applicable for both women in private sector as well as the public sector. And after that, the very important reform with respect to social security, we need to talk about the Code of Social Security that was launched in the year 2020. So the Code on Social Security essentially provides the statutory framework to enable social security for the urban and rural poor. And not just the urban and rural poor, it also talks about the construction workers and those employees who are part of the gig industry, who essentially lack the access to these social security benefits, along with the informal sector workers. Okay, so therefore it usually provided the statutory framework to enable the social security for the people, for the categories of individuals or workers who are earlier not covered under the social security benefits. So these were the important legislative measures that were taken by the government of India to provide social security or social safety nets for the people. So after that, we need to talk about few schemes that were launched by the government recently, and these schemes essentially aimed at providing more and more social security for the workers. Firstly, we need to talk about Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandan Yojana. So this was a very important and flagship scheme that was launched by the government in the year 2019. So this scheme specially focuses on the old age protection. Okay, so this essentially focuses on old age protection of the employees who are part of the workforce. So voluntary and contributory pension scheme for the unorganized sector workers. Those Shramayogi Mandan Yojana is essentially covers the unorganized workers, and it provides them with the old age protection. After that, we need to talk about Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, Atal Pension Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana. So these three schemes were launched at once. So these three schemes are also essentially provides social security, social safety nets, social backing for the employees who are in the informal or unorganized sector. So these are government backed life insurance schemes. This scheme was launched in 2015, and this scheme also Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana has also launched in the year 2015. So this is also Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana is also government backed accident insurance scheme. This was launched in 2015 as well. So lastly, we need to talk about the Atal Pension Yojana. So this is also a government backed pension program or pension scheme, and this was launched in the 2015 also as well. So this Atal Pension Yojana primarily targets the unorganized sector workers, similar to the Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandan Yojana. Now, why these schemes have been focusing more on the unorganized sector workers? Because those employees who are in the formal sector and organized sectors, they already enjoying the benefits of social security and social safety nets. However, the most of the workforce which are in the unorganized sector, they are not enjoying these social security benefits. So hence the government launched these schemes to extend the social security for these employees. Okay, so that's all in this lecture about the social security. So I hope you like this session, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. So if you have any doubts regarding this lecture or any suggestions, please write those suggestions in the comment section. Thank you.